Hey, and welcome to another episode of Tavern Talks, and I'm back in the chair. This is Corey. I'm here with Matt, and our guest today from 2Kings Games is Randy. So let's just do a little introduction. Randy, tell us a little bit about yourself, about 2Kings Games, and mostly the Kickstarter that's going on right now, that like rats. So go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, as you said, my name is Randy Price. I am the founder and creative director of 2Kings Games, which is a very small, teeny tiny little fish in a very big pond still. We're hoping you guys will help us out with that, though, make us a bigger fish that can withstand being chased around by even bigger fish, maybe. But anyway. Yeah, I've been in the role-playing industry. I started in 1983 because I'm an old dude, and I started it with the red box set, playing that, and since then I've run and played over a dozen different other games. I would say I'm familiar with that many, and then with the help of being one of the GMs for Pathfinder Society, I've got 120 tables under my belt as far as running for tables for players. So 120 times 6, that many players. That's how many I've at least helped out running games for. That's a little bit about me.
So yeah, tell us about 2Kings Games, and kind of where that, because most of what we do here on Tavern Talks is talk about the journey, right? We bring people on, we talk about their journey through being a game master and writing stuff, or being a professional game master, or whatever it is. So that's what I'm getting at is, what's the journey for you getting 2Kings Games up and running and all of that stuff?
Well, we're about 5 or 6, almost 6 years old now. I think June will make our 6-year mark. And as far as where we started, like a long time ago, a lot of out-of-pocket expense, as you can imagine, to get the ball rolling. We have, as far as my other, I have 2 other business partners. Our CEO is Jeff Searcy. I asked him if he could be here, but I might not have given him enough time. I was a bad panda on that, so yeah.
Well, we didn't give you much time. We asked you yesterday.
Yeah, this is not you guys' fault. This was just an idea yesterday. We were like, why don't we have Randy on? Because we were discussing a lot, like rats, and we really wanted to get some more info straight from the horse's mouth, as it were. But you were talking about, one thing that you were talking about was being Pathfinder Society, that you had a lot of experience doing that. And that was one of the first things I actually noticed when I was looking at the Kickstarter, is that the module seems to be pretty system agnostic. It kind of works with everything. I noticed it says 5e Pathfinder and Pathfinder 2, right?
Yeah, if it involves a D20, it's probably supported by what we're doing. So 5th edition, I'm not sure if we're allowed to say the full name on the show or not, but you guys can. I don't know if I can. But yeah, 5th edition, I think everybody knows what I'm talking about. It's also going to be supported for Pathfinder 1st edition and Pathfinder 2nd edition as well, just because well, to be honest, I love Paizo's work, and I've loved it for over 11 years now, I think. And I think that they need to share a little bit of our love, so to speak, and that's why we're supporting them as far as this goes, is in addition to 5e, which is, its popularity cannot be underestimated. It is definitely the biggest fish in the pond to date. So
yeah, and I have a lot of my GM friends that still, they didn't, when 3.5 hit and Pathfinder came, they were just like, this is our lives from now on. This is the only version of TTRPGs that we're interested in. And then meanwhile, I'm kind of like you, Randy. I'll play literally any system.
Yeah,
I love all of them.
I'm a system junkie. Like I think when I retire, my goal is to just run different games for different systems, just to try them out. We ran an Expanse RPG on stream a little while back, and that was a fun system to try and run. So yeah, I'd say I love trying new stuff.
Yeah.
I don't think I could write one though. Even though I've been a game designer for a long time, I don't think I could write a role play game and make it at all balanced. So I'm glad that there are systems out there I can play.
Well, I think you underestimate yourself then, because if you've run for even half as many people as I've run for, you know what people are looking for out of a good game session. Once you've got that, the rest of it is gravy. So yeah.
Well, I can write adventures, but writing the system, writing the rules.
Oh no, yeah, you're right. The system
I don't think
itself,
I could do that.
That involves more math than my brain is capable of handling. Really, you really have to have a 100% brain exposure. We got the left brain and the right brain.
Yeah.
You need them both in order to write rule systems for role-playing games.
For sure.
So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So tell us a little about Age of Ancients.
Age of Ancients, we have 2Kings has two brand lines. We have Little Feet, which is for parents to run games for their kids. And then we have Age of Ancients, which is more mature audiences. They expect a little bit more. We would expect that you would expect a little bit more as far as advanced role-playing concepts and things like that go, which leads me into this particular one is called Like Rats. It is primarily it's Norse-centric, is what I'll say. Our main continent in our world is called Arelon, and Arelon, the north part of it, the northern hemisphere on up, the colder parts is very Norse heavy. If you like the Norse storylines and things like that, you should love this adventure. As far as let's see, where was I? My train of thought just crashed and burned.
So we talked about the culture, and we haven't really talked about like specifically what the adventure entails. So
without spoilers, of course.
Without spoilers, absolutely.
Yeah.
But a political intrigue game or dungeon crawls, or what have we got going on?
It is political intrigue heavy. It is a sandbox adventure. Other than the fact that getting them, if you can get your players to the city of Valjeven, the adventure will take care of the rest. It will. What happens is at the very beginning, they will fight a group of. We're not really. I don't like calling them monsters, but they're a different. They're non-humans. They're called Wolfen in our game, and the Wolfen are kind of like a northern version of a gnoll, but a little bit less nasty and crude about things. They have their own culture, their own beliefs, and maybe we can later on show some pictures of two of the sample artwork that we have for the Wolfen. I'm very proud of that. I worked on the Wolfen with the author Taylor Turner is the author of this adventure, and they're very cool. One of the things that they can do is they're a spiritual race in that they have a ceremony that their high priestess leads them through that will allow them to share their power of each of their spirits or their souls with one another, so that like whenever they get into combat and you kill one, if there's 10 of them, 9 of them are going to be getting much more powerful than they were before. So if you end up, if your resort, your only way you can get rid of them is to go in one at a time, you're going to have a hard time defeating them. And that's one of the little mechanics we have built into the adventure as far as the wolfen goes at the very beginning. Once they go ahead.
Well, I'm just saying that I find that really interesting from a design mechanic, because that's usually what parties do, is they're like, oh, that one's low on hit points, take it down, and everybody focus fire, right? And if you did that, that's actually going to make every other one harder. So you kind of got to bring them down together, right?
Yeah, man, it's go ahead.
I was going to say, my first thought with this is I like playing wizards. That's what I usually play, is just how bad it would be if you walk in, drop a fireball, and everybody fails their save but one, and you lose like 9 of them at once, and then just you have this one guy that's just super powered.
So you've got this one guy that all of a sudden has 90 extra hit points, and his AC just jumped up by 9.
It went from a horde fight to a boss fight real fast.
Right. Yes. But nice. Because we don't have to worry about fireballs, because this is a first level adventure that'll get them from first level to 5th level. So there should be no fireballs going off to complicate things, at least early on for the GM anyway. So,
Randy, that's one thing that I think is really cool that's happened in design lately with D&D modules, is we're seeing a lot more people do stuff with first level characters. And I felt like, early in my days, I started in 4E, which everybody hisses and boos when I say that, but that's just the age I was. But you kind of just started at level 2 or 3. That's just was kind of the norm, so that everybody got their archetype. They got some special abilities. Right. And I really think that that's wasting some character development and some pretty cool opportunities for creative combat. When you're low level and you kind of have to make these decisions and do things a little bit more dramatically to accomplish what you need.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, we had a vested interest in starting it out, because if you finish if you are so kind as to support all of our adventures, you will take your party from level 1 to level 20, and the last adventure in the line is it will be geared specifically for you start to get the adventure at level 20, and you have the entire adventure to play with your new tools, your new toys. So yeah, and but for this one it's 1 to 5. After they encounter the wolfen, it starts to rain, and on their way to Valyaven, which they're supposed to deliver a missive from the king to the lead jarl there, who's Julius Targ, explaining that they need to prepare for war. And getting there, it starts to rain. And it doesn't stop raining to the point where the city of Valyaven, which is built on a hill, eventually, like the first night, it washes out the road, so that you can't leave the town. You're stuck in the town, and then this quickly becomes an urban adventure after that, with the remainder of what's going on. And as each night progresses, each day goes by, it gets a little bit more tense as far as the people that are left in that are trapped in the city.
Right. Yep.
So they're like what's going on in the city at this particular time is a seasonal meeting of the jarls, which are not quite kings or queens, but like one step below that as far as Norse society goes. They're used to people doing what they tell them to do. And that's one of the things that the PCs might come into conflict with the jarls, and that the jarls are all vying for the attention of these powerful characters who are helping out with whatever they're helping with, and they want them on their side. So there's 3 different sides to the adventure. There's House Targ, House Hegvern, and House Ekburn. And they're all filthy rich nobles that are not necessarily nice people. They're very charismatic, but they're not very, when it gets down to it, if you were to find out what they're really all about, they're really not nice guys or women. So
that's always really intriguing to me. Is we were talking about this a couple of weeks ago with a guest that comes on, is as you get deeper into aligning yourself with one of these factions and you start to realize the stuff that they're doing that's not so pretty and happy and sunshiny, you're kind of already so deep down that rabbit hole of I've been backing them, I've been killing them, that how does that impact your player character's mentality when they're like, I just have to overlook that these people are doing some real bad stuff because I'm going to look like a complete like heretic now if I change my mind almost. And I think that's a really healthy thing for players, and it kind of keeps them away from the murder hobo path to a degree.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. If they go murder hobo, they're going to have 3 different noble houses come down on their head. However, there is a 4th option here. If you want to side with the commoners who are being oppressed, help, I'm being oppressed. The commoners they want change, and they want it now. They're tired of being mistreated by the nobility. They're tired of being taken for granted for the work that they do for these nobles. And there is a figure called the Rat, who's not sure whether it's a man or a woman, not sure what race they are. All you know is that once you meet this character, and you will about like 3/4 into the city encounters, they have bright blue eyes, but that's the only clue about who they might be. And I'm not going to spoil it, so
No spoilers.
I immediately have my suspicions, and I don't even want to say them, and I don't know.
I'm gonna back way back because you mentioned something about races. So we'll take it from the storyline to your world. So what races are in your world? Are they kind of your classic fantasy races, or are there other races people can play in this world?
You can play any of the player's handbook races. Those are all encouraged. You can also play one of the newbie races, and let's put it into Pathfinder terms as well, ancestries. They call it ancestry now for Pathfinder 2nd edition, just because the word race has all kinds of baggage.
Exactly.
Charged. It's a little charged.
Yeah. So, but I'll just call it ancestry from the rest of the zombie. Now you know what I'm talking about. But it's the other ancestries we have are the Jotun blood, which are magically bred humans that have with frost giants. So you've got these extremely tall, muscular. They were created to be a slave race. Sorry, there's that word again. They were created to be a source of slave labor for the frost giants in the past, and only like the last 100 years or so they won their freedom. They had a rebellion and they won their freedom, and now they have their own little country called Varsheim rather. And Varsheim was given to them in thanks by the elves. It was basically, it used to be elf land, and the elves gave it to them as a thank you for helping them defeat a big proportion of the frost giants. Although of course the frost giants are not entirely out of the picture, they are the big baddie in our setting. Just like if you've read any of the Thor comic books or whatever, they're mean, vicious, and used to being able to stomp whoever gets in their way. So, but.
And that's one thing that I really appreciate, and kind of, I do some writing for GUI Cube, and we were talking about in the writing session one day, I was like, I'm always torn because I want to write really complicated bad guys who have these shades of gray, and like if you look at them from the right perspective, then they're actually right. And then I was like, but and Alphinius stressed this. He's like, sometimes it's good to just have somebody who is utterly unredeemable and just a terrible person and just should be taken down, and there's no saving.
And
I think
that
that's
position is given to the players, and they can support or go against any of these jarls. So there's no like railroading as far as that goes. They can support they can go against all three of them and support the rat. There's all different kind of options for the players that they can choose from in this, just to add to the intrigue. Again, you only start off at first level, so you're not like this Billy Bad Butt that can, walk in and, I'm here and you're going to do what I say kind of thing. You're only first level. So you're a hero to the commoners, the common people, but the nobles, they may have seen somebody tougher than you. So
they have a lot of people working for them who are tougher than you.
Right. To start off with anyway. Yeah. As it goes on, you advance in level from 1 to 5, and but the storyline is intended to end at 5th level. Although there's nothing stopping the GM. This is a very modular adventure. The GM can easily go in and take what's been given in this adventure and do their own thing with it. Mm-hmm. And we encourage them to do that.
So I'm posting again the Kickstarter link in chat. Like Rats, this is the first adventure of Age of Ancients.
There are 4 listed on our 2kingsgames.com website, and that's the number 2kingsgames.com. If you go there,
that corner, I think.
Yeah, and just click on it's right up there. And but anyway, yeah, that's where you can find our stuff. There's going to be 4 adventures starting off with, but we're going to have probably a total, once we're said and done, probably more like 7 adventures from getting you from level 1 to level 20. The last of which takes you full circle into a showdown with a character called the Dragon Queen, who is this ancient red worm, and she, at the beginning of Like Rats, controls parts, a big swath of the continent on the east side, and she has a land of what the fair folk, the humans, the dwarves, the elves, the gnomes, the halflings would call monsters or monstrous races. She has all of those folks on her side. So there's a lot of politics as far as, is she really all that bad? The king seems to think so.
Probably a lot of the fair folk do too.
Right. Because they've had negative experiences with her and her people. So, but so that level 20, you get to play entirely from the perspective of an absolute champion player character, going up against, at the end of the adventure, you would meet this Dragon Queen and either listen to her or try to fight her. So either way is exciting, I think.
It's got kind of a Witcher vibe to it, where it's, Geralt is supposed to be just this monster slayer, but every once in a while he kind of takes the time to listen to see what the monsters have to say,
right,
and decide whether they're actually a threat or not, which is interesting to say the least.
Yeah, and our Little Feet brand line, we encourage that for parents to try to be able to teach kids to try to talk to the monsters before you just outright smash them. Because sometimes they may be more powerful than you and will smash you back, or B, are not really the enemy that they were told they are. So
it's about perspective, right? I mean,
yeah.
And if mutual existence is possible, which sometimes it's not, but a lot of times, if you just stay out of each other's yards, I feel like there's a lot that can be gained there.
Yeah, there's a lot of feudalism going on in Like Rats, so the humans haven't learned yet not to stay out of their neighbors' yards. They're not yet. They will learn that over the span of the first 4 adventures, but which happens over a span of 60 years.
Really?
Yeah, so you can
That's cool.
you can play like a generational game if you wanted to, where you start off with your character and like rats, and then you can play a daughter or son of that other character for book 2, and then continue that process on through if you wanted to. If you're playing a human, if you're playing an elf, you play the same character the whole way through because you're just older than dirt. So but
that was my next question is are the humans exceptionally long lived? Could you play a human character all the way through? But I'm sure there's some kind of magical way a DM could deal with that. Like you get Master Chiefed and like put into hibernation by a wizard until the world needs you again or something. Would be an easy way to do that.
Yeah, then you have a Futurama situation, right? So,
yeah.
You're the best the past had to offer. What?
Have you ever seen the movie Idiocracy?
I love that movie. I think it's more of a documentary now.
Yeah, it is. But it's just like he's the most statistically average human from the past.
Right.
And he gets to forward and he's just like solving everything. Like, I got this. That's really cool.
Don't water the grass with Gatorade, maybe.
What are electrolytes? What the plants crave.
Yeah. So all right.
So let's go. I'm going to step back a little bit to 2Kings Games and talk a little bit about your journey and ask some questions. So what would you say in the last few years that you guys have been kind of putting all this stuff together? What would you say would be the biggest challenge you had to overcome to get where you are, launching a Kickstarter, getting all this great artwork and great stories written? And, what would you say the biggest challenge was?
The biggest challenge is hands down the money factor and not having a whole lot of it to start off with. And because we're a new company, we don't have the fan base that the bigger companies have to support, Kickstarters where, I'm not sure if you see it going to our Kickstarter page yet or not, but we're not reeling in hundreds of $1,000s. So
right.
that some of which has become more and more popular, and more power to them. Hey, they started many years ago too, I'm sure, and they did all the ground level work they needed to do to get where they are today. So yeah, but we're not quite there yet.
And you can't. If you don't want to say WotC or Wizards, I'll say it. But WotC has done some great work for us. But I think it's great that there is room in the marketplace now for other companies to step up.
I think that they've done a wonderful job in being a little bit welcoming for passing some of their projects to third parties, because at least that's how it started off with anyway with 5th edition. Because I know that there was a lot of people that were with Kobold Press that had to do with the first 2 books anyway, Hoard of the Dragon Queen and Rise of Tiamat. So
well, and
they're
also,
I don't see them as a bad guy. They're definitely the biggest, but I don't see them as a bad guy or somebody that you should have ill feelings towards at all.
And I think 5e was kind of a love letter to third party stuff, because one of the things I miss about 3, 5, and 4 is the amount of customization you could do and that kind of stuff. But really, I feel like they've done a good job of being like, here's something you can play with, or you can take what we've done, go play Lord of the Rings, their system, or GUI Cube, or 2Kings, and roll that into this framework that we've got.
And if you want to do it right, you'll follow Alphinius's direction in making things so easy for GMs to create an immersive environment by having spiral bound books. Okay. Which is a genius idea.
Why has nobody done that in the past?
Yeah,
it's such a good idea, and it's so simple and probably cheaper.
And I'll tell you why. It's because people like my business partners are like, no, people want hardcover books. Let's give them hardcover books. And I'm like, but you can take the book and fold it over and set it down, and then you take the other book that has the stat blocks in it and fold it over and set it down next to them, and voila.
I know the first time there was a separate encounter book, when I saw it, there was the encounter book and then there was like the stat block book. I was like, why has this not always been how it's done? That makes so much more sense. Because when I played Curse of Strahd, I was just constantly back and forth in the DM's reference guide. And when I saw that, I was like, why is this not industry standard? And I'm glad to see that if you guys also adopt that maybe it branches out.
I want to. If you can convince Jeff and John to get on board with that, Jeff and John, if you're listening.
Do they DM a lot?
Do they DM?
Yeah, that's exactly.
Yeah,
They do. They both do.
Then hand them the Darkest Dream and say, just run this for a night.
Yeah.
Just say, run this for a night and tell me if it's much easier to run with the materials in the Darkest Dream. And I you started it, so I don't feel bad in taking your time away and giving it to Gooey Cube.
I'm a huge proponent of the Goo Crew, so yeah.
But it's personal touches like that and passion that you can see that really make a difference in game companies. And you guys obviously are very invested in what you're doing, both emotionally and financially, which gives you a different feel than some of the like we were talking about. There's nothing wrong with Wizards of the Coast, but they're it's been done this way for 40 years, and that's why they're going to do it. And it's great now that there are smaller companies coming along who are like, hey, let's do this a little different and give these options to people who want to try something different.
Right. Absolutely.
Well, and I'll say this. I think even though most of Gooey Cube was around more in COVID than they were before COVID. And so when I got Darkest Dream at Genghis Khan a few years back, it was a year right before COVID, it brought me back to the table because I was taking all the stuff that other people were producing and going, how can I get this into my virtual tabletop? Because that's the way I want to run games, is because I then I do all the work and I make it so that it works on the computer so that I can deliver the content the way I want to deliver it and show things up on the screen. And I will say that by packaging it the way that they package it, it brought me back to the table and away from the computer, which I like. I think that's good.
Yeah. And on the other hand, you guys, the Gooey Cube has done a phenomenal job at supporting the VTT platforms out there for the people that don't have that luxury that still need to be able to play online, which it's not going away. So
no, it's not going away.
But I'll tell you something else that's really amazed me in doing this show and seeing a lot of the modules. And I think I've kickstarted so many modules since I've started doing Tavern Talks, because when I first started playing D&D and TTRPGs, my first DM was like, listen, Matt, every module ever written is trash. If you're not homebrewing and you're not if you come to this table with anything planned, you're DMing wrong. Everything should be seat of your pants, just do it, and modules are evil. And so for the first few years of my D&D career, that was my thing, is I was like, I'm not going to run a module. This is just a gimmick. And then the first time I picked up, it was Out of the Abyss was the first module I did. I was like, this is really cool, because as a DM, the big picture stories is where I struggle. But the small little mini interactions with how characters behave towards each other and the relationships with NPCs is what I love, and that's where I thrive. And so when you have all of these different modules that these companies are creating, and it's not just the 2 a year that come out from the big guys, it's amazing for me to be able to grab that and say, all right, I've got the big story. I like what this says on the cover and inside the front pages, and now I can take this and make it my own. And that's what I love about doing Tavern Talks, is hearing people who are so passionate and there's so much love put into these little modules.
Right.
And I almost feel guilty taking somebody else's world like that sometimes. I'm not going to lie, because it's like, hey, I made this guy completely different than what you made.
The investment. You took your hard-earned money and you gave it over to your friendly local gamer shop, hopefully. And so you've done your share of helping them promote their product. So, don't fault yourself there.
Yeah. And the other part about it, and I've said this before, is that a module should take you from here and set your floor higher.
Right.
Meaning that that's a lot less you then have to do, and you can then get to work in making it better. Whereas if you have to start from zero, your floor is pretty low, and it's it's just one of those things that we don't have all the time in the world to prep for a game. So the better the module, the more it has in it, the higher your floor, which means the higher your ceiling, and your players will enjoy it.
Right.
And that's the reason guys like you exist, like Randy, Corey, even bigger with like Matt Mercer, Chris Perkins, those guys. You exist so that I don't have to do that because I'm not good at it. And I could just give you money to do that for me.
Maybe you're not good at it right now, but after you've run through Darkest Dream, I guarantee you will be much better than you were when you started.
And I have been. I've written an entire country in a race for GUI Cube now, and I'm doing a team lead role on Gloomsport as well. But that was a big eye-opening experience for me. But it was really strange. I had a writing partner, and he was, again, I let him be like, this is their big thing. And I was like, okay, here's how they make their houses, and here's what they eat, and here's how their society, those little, I found myself going back to those little things to make it feel comfy, I guess is the word I'm looking for.
Right.
But it's an amazing experience, and DMing and getting better at those skills will make you better in a lot of ways. I think not just at the table, but outside as well. If you're constantly practicing, especially in social games, if you're constantly practicing seeing other people's perspectives or point of views, it's going to make you naturally do it in the world easier, which is going to be better for everybody.
Right.
So Randy, I'm going to jot us in a different direction here about DMing. You've DM'd thousands, it sounds like, of people at your tables. What are some DM tips? Like, if you had two things you could tell a DM to do, or two things not to do, what would those be?
Hold on just a second. I got a cough.
It's okay.
Just a minute here. Let me
Corey, dance to fill time.
Where is
That's what we do on Tavern Talks. We dance to
the
fill
mute?
time.
There it is. I'm so sorry, people.
That's all right.
Okay.
You could have coughed in my ear and you didn't, which is good.
All right.
So
rule number one of being a DM. Rule number one about being a DM is there are no rules. Rule number two about DM is see rule number one. It's like Karate Kid. Now, if you need a little bit more guidance in that, I'm sure you definitely meant for me to say more than that. Have fun with it. Have a session 0 with your players that you can get a feel for who they are as people and what type of character they want to bring to the table. Then you can, once you get like a one-page backstory from each of them for each of their player characters. It'll probably feel like pulling teeth to get those 500 words from them. But if you can get those 500 words from them, that'll tell you as the GM what they want from you for your job that you're doing for them. Then you can easily roll that into story hooks for your first session. And then it'll just go from there. That's what I have to say about that.
Awesome.
I agree.
500 words. You hear that? So Plots in Darkenhaven, all of those cast members out there, Randy told me to get 500 words from you.
So
yeah,
that's what I was going to say, Randy, is my character design has been finalized finally for Plots in Darkenhaven coming up. And Corey and I had, I don't know, about an hour and a half session where it was just he and I on a call. And he was like, tell me who your character is. And I would tell him, and he'd say, stop. And then he'd say, okay, we're going to do a little vignette. We're going to do a little bit of RP with just the two of us, with you and a couple of characters around. And then we established that, moved on, and did a couple more. So it really gave me a chance to get into that space before I was that person with other characters, so that I wasn't necessarily letting the other players form who I was based on them. It made my character me without any other influence on it, if that makes sense.
right.
Yeah, I call that putting some dust on your character, putting some dust on the clothes before you walk into the saloon, right? You know who you are before you walk in, because usually when you get a brand new party together, they're kind of looking around like, okay, well, you're this person and it becomes very chaotic those first few sessions to figure out who these characters really are. Mm-hmm. And sometimes it's just based on the whim of the night or who had the most beer that evening and got charismatic. Instead they come in with some dust on their clothes. They know who they are, and their choices are character choices, and not just kind of off the cuff choices. So that's one of the reasons why I'm doing those origins before we launch Plots in Darkenhaven. And I'm gonna segue here for a second. Sorry, Randy.
Sure.
Plots in Darkenhaven, 7/10/22. That's a Sunday. That's going to be our very first episode. And then we'll be doing Sundays after that of Plots in Darkenhaven. And we've got a huge cast. I think we have like 13 different people who are going to be not regulars, but semi-regulars, people dropping in, dropping out. It's an episodic adventure. So it's all happens in Darkenhaven, and each 2-session episode will be a different story arc, and then we'll have different cast members dropping in and out. And we hope to bring the city of Darkenhaven to life. I'm so happy that Pam and Jens, who are some of the mains for the Darkenhaven box set, are cast members. So that will be very good to bring that story to life, and I can't wait. So there's my 1 minute plug on Plots.
Well, Corey, I'm glad that you have said something about it officially, because James has been almost about to say something about it every single time we've been on stream together, and I've been like, James, maybe wait until like everything is finalized. But it's going to be epic, guys. We're going to have at least triple the size cast that we have. We're going to have multiple GMs swapping in and out for the same storyline. So there's at least 3 GMs involved right now. It's going to get crazy, and everything that we've done on Tabletop Misfits is going to be bigger and better and more organized and more regular is another thing. We're going to start doing a few pre-recorded things so that if somebody's sick or there's a tornado coming, we can just plug those episodes and you guys can see them and not miss out on the great content. Yep. So that's my plug.
There we go. Yeah. So 7/10/22 is our first episode of Plots in Darkenhaven. And then from there it'll be every Sunday, even if we have to throw a pre-recorded one up. So between now and then we're getting a couple of pre-recorded ones in the can. And then it'll be good. It'll be good.
It's gonna be great. A lot of talented people. But segueing back.
Yes. So we were talking about good GM tips.
Yes.
And I like that you focused on there is no rules, Randy, because there is a huge rule book, right? There's actually a bunch of rule books, and sometimes people get caught up in those. And I think that having people familiar with the rules of the game are good, and it gives everybody a common thread as far as what to do with their die rolls and what the die rolls might mean. But the last thing you want at your table is somebody looking up rules.
Right.
So it's one of those things that, when we start playing, it's knowledge in our heads only. We will move on forward, even if we don't know the rules for a specific situation. And then we'll look it up later, because during the game, that's the last time you want to be rules lawyering and looking up how to handle things,
or be the rules lawyer too, which is for people that are listening here, that's a good way. If you're doing this to a veteran GM or DM, it's a good way to have your character killed quickly.
Yeah. And I'm gonna find this. If
you make them look stupid, they're gonna say, "All right, it's on."
I'm gonna find this one day, because I know it's in the 5e PHB, and I'm gonna laminate it and put it on my wall. But there is a part in the PHP, I'm pretty sure somewhere, that says specifically that what the DM says overrules anything else in the PHP. Right. So if you're playing 5e and you're the DM, it says in the book that whatever you say is the rule. Now, don't get so toxic with it that you lose friends over it. But in a creative sense, if you decide that fall damage is 10d6 instead of 1, and you have a reason that you think it should be that way, if you're the DM, that's the way it is, bud. That's the new rules. And just take it, just roll with it. Some of the coolest moments as a player are when you screw up, or the DM like punishes you for doing something stupid and you have to react. So being a good player is also important.
or if you think you know the situation, but then you don't, peat bog trolls, for example, in the what is the bog over there in at the Essenverd?
Bleakwater.
Bleakwater, yeah. Peat bog trolls, for example. You know, you think trolls, you try to set them on fire, and then chaos ensues when you hit them with fire.
So just keep that in mind. The DM knows the DM is God. He is greater than Bahamut or Mistra or Thor or any other god that happens to exist in the multiverse you're playing in. The DM overrules them all.
I like the exponential fall damage. I might use that in chat. Exponential. So, you know, the first 10 feet's a D6, and then it's 3D6, and then it's 6D6.
Right. 10D6 is like you've 100 feet plus that, after that, what I think here in the chat here, somebody else pronounced that, but anyway, the person that said that, terminal fall damage. You've exceeded that point. 10D6.
I tell you, I pulled that on Austin on a pre-recorded game earlier that we were playing. Is like there was a big bad. I looked down at the clock. It was a one shot. We had 4 minutes left. The big bad was starting to morph into an unstoppable behemoth. I was like, I grab her and run and jump out the window. It's like he said we were on like a 10th story building.
That's right.
And he went,
I remember that.
He went, and he's like, "Are you like trying to brace?" I was like, "Nope, I'm leaning my shoulder and my axe into her." And he's like, "What kind of how much damage is that?" I was like, "It's not my job. It's not my job. You figure out how much damage that is. It will go from there."
we got 20 minutes left for this game. You can figure out.
Yeah, just decide, because it was a cool ending. You know, if I had died, I was gonna go with it. But if the big bad had stood up and laughed and been like, "Ha, I'm immune to fall damage," it would have been a funny moment too. So sometimes you just got to trust your GM. Just do silly stuff and let your DM have fun.
Yeah, play your character the way you think your character would be best played.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's another thing that might get into a sticky situation with sometimes. But generally speaking, I'm a big fan of character development.
Yeah.
Somebody's sat at my table for 2.5, 3 years. I'm going to trust them to know their character. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, you said something a minute.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, you said something a minute ago there, Matt, about being a good player, and I think that that's just as important as the game master's role. As a player, supporting the other players, and even though you know your character, sometimes your character, and I'm going to point fingers here, Matt, about the paladin in Plots and Darkenhaven. Sometimes people will play a paladin-like character, and they have this sense that my character would never do this and never do that and never do this, and they're very black and white, and that's not real people. So if somebody else at the table has an idea that your character probably wouldn't agree with, I think your job as a player is to find a way to make it work, not to say, I'm not doing that, and if you try to do that, I'm gonna draw my sword and attack you. You know, it really is about finding a way to make it work. And then later, if your character wouldn't have done it, find a way to make your character repent. Man, I can't believe I did that. I'm so upset about the fact that I went along with this person and did something that I regret. Those make good stories. So
don't be as a player, don't be lawful stupid, don't be chaotic stupid. You know,
and that's kind of the whole point of the character I'm playing in Darkenhaven. Is he was kind of lawful stupid before. He was a lawful good paladin who smote who he was told needed to be smoted, and he realized that has some real bad implications sometimes. And he's actually an Oath of Redemption paladin who is a redeemed lawful good paladin and is now true neutral, because he realized that sometimes lawful good is not lawful right.
I think we're taking an ad break right now, by the way.
Oh, did it go to an ad?
Yeah.
Oh, you know what that is? That's freaking mid-roll. Twitch just changed that. So Twitch changed it now that there's a mid-roll every so often. Okay. We're back.
I didn't even see it. Didn't even notice.
Twitch, stop doing mid-rolls.
That's all right. Well, if you say we're back, we're back. Okay,
we're back. What it is non-subscribers wouldn't have seen that, or
Oh,
subscribers
okay.
would not have seen that, but non-subs see ads every so often now because Twitch has, in their infinite wisdom, decided that's what should be done. But they have to keep the lights on. I get it. But toss us a Twitch Prime subscription
All right.
if you have it.
Now we're
It's free.
definitely back. I see all three of us on the screen.
Yes.
Welcome. Huzzah.
Yeah. So now that that's over,
Sorry.
So I feel like I need to watch the stream as a non-subscribed user so that I know when that happens. So that
I'm doing that.
Okay. All right.
But also the other thing was that is because I'm in Texas and Randy, wherever you are, those ads are also based on your geography and what your history is. So you might see a different ad than I see. So that's why we're getting different length ads. It's the algorithm is a hell of a thing. But we were talking about being a good player, and sometimes being human is letting someone else's idea be the one that's followed. For instance, I do not like having Grey's Anatomy on my television every night, but my wife does. So sometimes I'll watch something on my phone while my wife gets to watch Grey's Anatomy. That kind of thing. Sometimes you do it because you love or you respect or you care about that person.
Yep. Compromise. It's all about compromise. As far as if you want your relationship to last, you better learn that quick.
Mm-hmm. And that's not just like a significant other, that's friendships, business relationships, coworkers, whatever it is. If you're not willing to compromise and see the other person's point of view, you're gonna have a bad day at some point.
Yep.
Been a little bit preachy.
I know we are. I don't know.
Philosophizing here.
Philosophizing. So we only have a few minutes left in our hour, and I wanted to draw us back to the Kickstarter, to 2Kings games, and to other products that you have out there. And you talked about having the Little Feet product line that is meant for kids. Tell us a little bit about designing games for younger audiences.
If you ever want to challenge yourself as a game master, run a table for ages 8 to 12. They will challenge you like none like you've ever been challenged before. And you need to be extremely patient with them, but also extremely open-minded with them. And that's how because every convention I go to, I have gone to for the last, well, maybe that's a bad example with COVID, but the last 3 active years I've been in conventions, I have been running Little Feet games for tables, and I love it when I have a table of nothing but kids at, because they will tell it like it is. They don't like your play style. They're going to tell you. They're going to let you know you suck. They're gonna say, if they're getting bored, their body language is going to tell you they're getting bored. They'll start fiddling with their phone. They'll start doing stacking dice. They will do something to let you know inadvertently you need to do something to grab my attention. And so that's how I see it. As far as challenges go, that's probably the main challenge, is capturing your audience's attention. Thankfully, I think GUI Cube has done a great job of doing that by having these handouts. And because when you get into a room, 9 times out of 10, you've got a visual aid you can set on the table and say, this is what it looks like. Kids love that. They'll eat that up. And if you have miniatures, they prefer miniatures because, again, it's very tactile. It's very dynamic. Kids love having that as an option to them.
That is a super rare skill set. I'll tell you kind of some inside baseball. Casey and I in Gen Con planning have been kicking around for the last few months about having kids adventures available. And he was like, I don't have time, but if you want to work on something, go for it. And it's tough. It's because it's hard to put myself in the mindset of a 12, 13-year-old. I don't remember what I thought was acceptable and unacceptable and interesting was at the time. And that's a very special skill set to have a product that's interesting to kids, that not necessarily preachy or teachy, but there's something there for them to learn or to grasp hold of.
That's fun to learn.
Yes.
Yes.
that's they don't even realize they're learning is the
Yeah. Like the best video games that are for kids out there, the ones that do those things that the parents go, they've learned something. They don't know they did, but they learned something. So
I learned more about the American frontier and math from Oregon Trail than I did from like 5 years of public education in reality.
More than you wanted to know about dysentery too.
Yeah,
Right,
for
exactly.
sure. My poor wives. But yeah, it really is such a big deal. And if you have kids, get them into TTRPGs early. You can bring up issues that you wouldn't see in real life, and Little Feet is a great way to do that. It opens some avenues for them to express themselves creatively, and you might learn something that you didn't know about your own kid. If that makes
two
sense.
of the races that I only mentioned one race when your earlier question. I'm sorry about that. I'm going to jump right in back because this brings it full circle.
There we go.
We have two races two ancestries that are fuzzy people. Like for example, kids love animal anthropomorphics. That's another thing about the kid, to tie into the kid question a minute ago. We have the Tanuki, which are we have the Tanuki, and our Tanuki is a little different. We put a spin on it so that there are different types of Tanuki depending on what part of the continent you're at. So the northern Tanuki are like the traditional Japanese raccoon dogs.
Love the Tanukis.
Yeah, and then if you go for a little bit further south, they start to look like red pandas. Everybody loves red pandas.
Yeah.
Cutest thing in the world, except for that one Australian or Tasmanian critter that smiles all the time.
Oh, the quokkas.
Yeah, quokkas. That would be the next thing I would do, but I don't know. That might be like too singular. I don't know. But anyway, so red pandas in the middle of the continent, and then the southern Tanuki look like otters. They're sleek. They're longer than taller than the other Tanukis. But all three of these different subspecies or these heritages, if you want to put it into Pathfinder Second Edition terms, give you
different benefits.
Different benefits. There are mechanical differences, slight ones, not big ones, but they're all shapeshifters, and that, in my opinion, is a tremendous boon if you can make yourself look like other people in a game. It also opens up tremendous imagination potential for playing that character, because then you're playing a character. It becomes kind of like an Inception situation where you're playing a character that's playing a character that's playing another character.
Yeah, right. There's a Tropic Thunder reference, I think.
But so that's one of them is the Tanuki, and then there's actually a stretch goal for this Kickstarter for the Tanuki source book that we have that is written. We just need to create the art for it, and that's we've already got that lined up as well. It's the mid-range stretch goal. And then there's the Wolfen is another stretch goal that you can have for another ancestry or race that you can get into. How would I want to learn more about them? How do I play a Wolfen as a player character? You'd be able to do that with this source book. And then lastly are the Ratatas, which are my favorite, the Squirrel Folk, because everybody's favorite character, at least my favorite character in the Ice Age series, is the one that has like his own little like mini movies that you hardly ever see him otherwise. Is Scrat.
Or Scrat, yeah.
Scrat the squirrel, the saber-tooth squirrel. But yeah, the Ratatosk is based on, and the Ratatosk are actually descendants of the god Ratatoskr, which is the squirrel that runs up and down the world tree in Norse mythology called Yggdrasil. And they love to tell tall tales. That's what he did. He would like tell stories to the eagle at the top and the dragon at the bottom, and he'd run back and forth and lie to each other about what either one of them was saying about each other. And he just like cause all kinds of mischief but he did it because he wanted to make something memorable. He wanted to make stories memorable. And the Ratatosk is a great way to do that in the Little Feet storyline. And for our next Little Feet Kickstarter, we'll probably have the Ratatosk source book as an option, where a character player option for you.
So to bring it back full circle, 2Kings Games, the Kickstarter is Like Rats, and you got 14 days left on the Kickstarter. Is that what we're looking at?
That's right. Yeah. I'm looking at this Kickstarter right now. 14
days left to participate. Get in on that, and that's the first of the Age of Ancients. Also, if you have kids, check out their website, look at the Little Feet stuff, and yeah, this has been a great discussion. So glad to have you join us, Randy.
Thank you.
And we'll be talking some more, but I guess we'll close it out. Yeah. And this is where I love to have somebody on tech, so close us out. Bye, everyone.